Ancient Greek fortune tellers and soothsayers who frightened even the quote unquote gods. He was not the only fortune teller or halkas. Most every place in Greek mythology had its own prophet, dreamer, necromancer. Bring me a sheep to slaughter to see the future, they would say. Let's remember that this is not to be done. Remember what happened to King Saul in the Old Testament, the first king of Israel, who went to the necromancer to talk to the prophet Saul, something that he should never have done as a commandment of God. Anyway, for example, here, there was the ancient Greek fortune teller Telemus, who lived in the island of the Cyclops, and he warned Polyphemus, the Cyclops that Ulysses killed, that he would be blinded by Ulysses or Idmon, the soothsayer who told Jason that they would all return alive from the Argonaut campaign, except himself, the seer, who would die during the journey. And despite his awkward prophecy, he went with them anyway. However, there were some fortune tellers, more fortunate tellers than others, for whom it is worth mentioning separately, and we will do that immediately. Number one was Aisakos. Priam had a son, Isaac. Aisakos is the Greek word for Isaac of the Old Testament. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Priam had a son called Isaac with the nymph Arizvi, with whom he had an affair before he married Hekabe, that is, before he was even lucky enough to have Paris as his archipelago. So this Isaac, because he was holding on to you, another great soothsayer, Meropas, inherited the ability to be able to explain dreams. So that put him on the big list of people who had predicted the fall of Troy, but could not do anything to stop it. However, unlike Cassandra, he was believed. So when Hekabe was pregnant with Paris, she had a strange dream that she was giving birth to a burning torch, or according to others, that she was giving birth to a monster with 100 hands, each holding a torch, burning Troy until it disappeared forever. In short, he fell in. And the same fell in Isaac, who explained the dream and told Priam that the child who will be born at a certain time and day will cause the destruction of Troy, and for this reason they should kill him and her, his mother. Isakos is right, Isaac, the soothsayer, the fortune teller. Paris was born on the cursed date he had predicted, but on that same day little Munipus was unlucky to be born to the wife of probably Priam's brother. The choice was easy for Priam. He did away with the other child slowly, one niece less, who will miss him, and let Paris live. Well done, wise choice. Isaac did not manage to die during the destruction of Troy. He did it much earlier. One day, as he was wandering in the countryside, he saw a beautiful nymph named Hesperia. He took her in the background. She understood him, started running to escape him, but in her panic she was hit by a snake, which reciprocated her rudeness with a bite, and the nymph died, and Isakos was inconsolable. He was supposed to have fallen in love with her. He had a good intention, tried to do away with himself, falling from a rock into the sea. Thetis, however, took him and transformed him into a seabird called the Athea, or otherwise divining Tra, and so as he reached near the bottom of the seabed, he flew back into the air. That is what the diver seems to do in reality. Not that I have ever seen it. Do not be fooled, I read it, he said, the writer says. 2. The fortune teller Trophonius. Those of you from Livadia, somewhere in Greece, may know this. The rest of you who listen to Trophonius' oracle, and it does not tell you anything, give a basis. Trophonius was an ancient soothsayer, an architect who lived in Livadia long before the jokes about its skewers began, that is, the good times. Together with his brother Agamedes, they had built half of Viotia, which is about an hour's 45-minute drive north from Athens, with the house of Hercules' parents standing out. Hercules was from Thebes, which is about an hour's ride from north of Athens. which is in Viotia. So, with the house of Hercules' parents standing out, as did the oracle he had made to foretell the future. So, when a rich king called them to build his treasury, he did not imagine that these two famous architects would suck him dry. So, the two of them built a completely safe building for him to keep his treasures inside. But with one small detail, they left a stone a little looser so that they could take it out, enter it whenever they wanted, pick up the diamond or so, make away with it, and put the stone back in its place, and no one would understand anything about how the treasure would be disappearing. So the architects who constructed this treasure, what would you call it, a fortress for his treasures, made a secret way passage for them to get in and steal the treasure of the king. So Yereas, however, at some point boasted that his treasure was dwindling, and he set a trap to catch the unknown robbers, probably with the help of Daedalus. Agamedes fell into the trap. He could not get out with anything, and Trophonius, the soothsayer, realized that he could do nothing, crucified him 3 times. In this way, he would protect his own identity. When he reached Livadia, 2 steps from the river Archina, the earth split in 2 suddenly, and Trophonius was lost in the gap. So, in other words, Trophonius found his karma. The earth swallowed him up normally. According to others, he dug the pit himself and hid in it because the king had understood the fraud and was chasing him. This gap was called the Pit of Agamedes, and when it was later discovered, it was worshipped as a sacred place, ? Why? Because in addition to always appreciating the super always appreciating the super cunningness of these thieves, there was a famine in the city, and the oracle of Delphi told the inhabitants that an old hero feels neglected in the pit, and in order to stop people dying in the streets, they should find his grave and pay homage to him. So it happens, it said, why would they pay homage to a theft that fell into a chasm during an earthquake? What can I tell you? Anyway, the third one, Melamboda. Mr. Melamboda is something like the Spider-Man of the... I'm sorry. What can I tell you? This is so funny. Mr. Melamboda is something like the Spider-Man of the fortune tellers, except that instead of being bitten by a spider... Am I ever going to finish this article? Instead of being bitten by a spider, 2 small snakes licked his ears when he was still young. So he got... I think, mythology is really something. Anyway, so he got his divination skills at least in the first phase when he began to understand what the animals were saying to each other. Okay, serious words, true words. I'm sorry, I can't stop laughing. Before we get to the scheming traumatic, however, let us first say that he got his name when his mother forgot him. How can a mother forget her child, still an infant, under the shade of a tree, but with his feet protruding in the sun? And yes, as you might have guessed, they became... I can't go on with this. The baby's feet became black dark tar. Outside the house, he was growing where was an oak tree on which some snakes had set up their nest. The servants of the house killed the serpents and then asked him to burn their trunks, but he felt sorry for the little newborn snakes he found among the corpses, and instead of burning them too, he kept them to raise them. One day they had become Kosam beasts. They saw that he had fallen asleep, stood on his shoulders, and began to clean his ears with their tongues. How dirty were his ears? Sorry. He woke up scared, and when he realized that he couldn't understand what the animals were saying, everything that passed by him, he lost them. Much later, he would learn to guess the future while reading the carcasses. I can't go on with this. Well, at some point, he also met Apollo. I can't. Oh my goodness. At some point, this prophet, this fortune teller, said he also met Apollo himself, who perfected him the art of divination. What can I tell you? Mr. Melambodas is also considered the first healer in antiquity, as he was invited by the king of Tiryns to his city in order to cure his 3 daughters who had gone mad. I shouldn't be laughing. You can't make this stuff up. Anyway, I have to go on. They either because they insulted the audience, or because they said something more about the most indestructible of the gods, Hydra, had lost their minds and were wandering the mountains. I had to take a break because I'm sorry, I had an accident. I couldn't stop laughing. They had lost their minds wandering in the mountains, surrendered to rage. Melambodas, the fortune teller, the soothsayer who knew the cult of Dionysius, he is also considered the first to water his wine, offered to cure them in exchange for 1/3 of the kingdom. But Proteus, the king of Tiryns, as the chip he was completely in, considered the oracle's demand excessive and dismissed it. But when the other Argian women, the women from Argos near Sparta, who did not hesitate to kill even their children, began to go mad, she begged him to return and save them. Melambodas, the fortune teller, as a true exploiter of old men, this time pressed his good and asked him for 2/3 of the kingdom instead of 1/3 of the kingdom. One for himself and the other for his brother Viantas. What should Proetos do? He accepted, because the women kept on getting mad. Together with the other people of Argos, Melambodas chased to Ciconia the women who in the meantime were trying to escape from them. There, Ephone, one of the 3 daughters of Proteus, lost her life, with the pursuit continuing to the Aroani mountain range. In this place, the soothsayer found them and led them to the site of Lusoi, where, with secret ceremonies and various magical herbs, he managed to bring them back to their senses. Then he threw in the Anigros River somewhere southwest of Olympia the objects he used for purification, and for this reason a bad smell emerges from the river. After that, Proetos married Iphianassa to Melambodas, the soothsayer, and his other daughter to his fortune teller brother Viantas, in order for them to ascend the throne as promised, but also to keep them in the family. Now, the 4th fortune teller soothsayer was Polidos. I'm going to try not to laugh with these things. I mean, I wasted a lot of time and probably your energy by laughing. I'm sorry about that. I just couldn't stop myself. Anyway, the 4th one is Polidos. We end with a soothsayer from Corinth, especially famous in antiquity, mainly because he managed to resurrect Minos' son, little Glaucus. The unimaginably rich kid was spending some time chasing mice when at some point he slipped and fell into a jar of honey, causing him to drown. And as if that alone was not enough, no one could find him. No one knew what happened. And according to legend, Apollo himself revealed to Minos where the child's body was, with the Curites adding that anyone who could best describe the color of a cow that changed 3 times a day would be able to bring it back to life. WTF, ? First the living became white, then red, and then black. Minos gathered the most capable and tried to describe the cow. I do not know how the most capable are defining for such a thing, and only Polidos from Argos, again that's where Sparta is, elsewhere referred to as Polidos, managed to describe it in the best way. He compared the color of the cow with the berry, that is first white, then red, and when it has matured for good, it becomes black. Minos then asked the Sooth-Sayer to resurrect his little son, otherwise he would never let him leave the island and return to his homeland. The soldiers took him and locked him in the cellar where the little boy was found dead and told him, "Come on, do your magic. Don't make him angry anymore," referring to the king. Then out of nowhere, a snake appeared which began to approach the child's body. The seer killed it and then saw a second snake appear which was carrying a herb in its mouth. And with that, he touched the dead snake and raised it. Polidos realized that something strange was playing there, snatched the herb from the reptile's mouth, rubbed it with the child's body, and after a while, Glaucus came back to life and its useless little problems. Minos, the king Minos, intended to break his promise and not let him go unless he was teaching the resurrected one the art of divination. Polidos had to teach the little spoiled zombie, Glaucia, all his secrets, but entered the boat to leave for Argos. He made him forget everything, spitting in his mouth. The herb that brought Glaucus behind the kingdom of the dead is supposed to have been saved by Asclepius and kept to revive the dead. Polidos was the protagonist in many other ancient myths. For example, he was the one who showed Bellerophon where to go in order to capture Pegasus, freed the king of Mysia to Thranta from the rage and leprosy with which Artemis punished him because he had not observed the sacred rules of the hunt, while he also said to his son Euchinoris that, quote, "Look, you will surely die young," so he chose, "Do you want to stay here and go from illness or to follow Agamemnon to Troy and die there," end quote. Euchinoris chose the latter, followed the Greeks, as a result of which the archbishop was killed by Paris, so that the disease was probably somewhat more glorious in the end as death. Unfortunate moment for both father and son. It did happen. So this is from oneman.gr, and I've translated this for you from Greek. I'm sorry about the laughter. It's just too much. Okay, anyway, please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.